tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. It was very nice to come in and chant the 28 Buddhas as a beginning for the evening. And we chanted this just a few days ago at the end of our Anagarika meeting. And while we were chanting it then and again today, it brought my mind into, it kind of opened my mind, I suppose, to the vast expanse of time and space that these 28 Buddhas have manifested over so many eons. And even if thinking of Shakyamuni Buddha, our Buddha that we received the teachings from 2,500 years ago, seems like a long time. And then just reflecting on the Buddhas that have come before him and the Buddhas that have come before those Buddhas, and going back, further than the mind can really conceive of. And I just found this perspective of the Buddhas arising in the world over these eons and eons a great help, and a kind of just such a helpful perspective when one gets so involved in the sense of me and mine and this little life that we're in now. And it may be, you might be the kind of skeptical thinking type who say, well, who can tell how many Buddhas there have been? There might never have been a Buddha, and how could anyone possibly know about Buddhas going back so far? But even if that's the way you think, you can still use the perception of those Buddhas as a tool to open the mind to something much broader than we tend to perceive, or that we tend to think within. And I'm also aware at the moment there's a lot of changes in the community here. People have just come from Chithurst, some people who've been away quite a long time, and some are going to Chithurst who've been here for a long time, and some are moving. I see people who've moved from the monastic robes into lay clothes, and people who are moving from lay clothes into the monastic robes. And there's people who are taking care of their parents who are sick and dying, and there are people who are taking care of their daughters who are giving birth. All of this is going on within our community, connected to our community. And each of these things, they resonate. They have when you're close to someone who's dying, or when you're close to someone who's leaving, or when you're close to someone who's giving birth, this has a very strong resonance in the heart. And so it's very important to have this perspective of something greater than the things that are happening at this moment in our life. And that this is in no way to diminish the feeling there. You know, the feeling is what it is, whether it's joy or grief or excitement, anticipation, whatever it is. It's not to say that one shouldn't have those feelings, or that they're to be rubbished in any way. They're to be known and understood, but within the context of this greater picture. And I can see how easy it is in a community for the energy to get dissipated and agitated and quite caught up. It's natural that this happens. So it's really important to keep this perspective of the greater picture, so that one can feel what is happening within the space of awareness and within the greater context. And just when I was sitting in the meditation before coming up here, for some reason a memory came from a long time ago, when I think I was in my teens actually, 18 or 19, and I'd been at work all day. I was working in a restaurant, I'd been working all day, and it was quite late at night. I had to get a train home and then walk up a steep hill from the train and down a steep track to where I lived in a rural area. And my mind was very caught up with resentment and frustration and irritation, and with my people, with my work situation, and with the situation the person I was living with, and this sense of I was very, very caught up in this kind of resentment and a real sense of poor me, it's not fair, and it should be different to this. And then as I was walking up this hill, suddenly I looked up at the night sky, and there was this vast expanse. There was this infinite space with stars and planets and moons and satellites in it, one moon that I could see. And there was this planet Earth that was also in this vast expanse of space. And there was a little island on this planet Earth called Britain. And then there was this little edge of Britain where I was walking up a hill, caught up in my story of my life and myself, and how it was and how it should be and how I wished it was different, and all of this. And just this it was, and then I could really see the humour in, me and my story. And there was this great, vast expanse within which this little story was unfolding. So I just wanted to remind, to keep that perspective of the big picture. And recently I spent the month of June in America, in California. Some of the time I was with Lumpur and Ajahn Anandabodhi and Ajahn Amaro. And we spent some time at Spirit Rock, a retreat centre there, where Lumpur was teaching a retreat. And It was a very, very beautiful place, quite idyllic actually, and lovely big meditation hall, and on the shrine they had, on one side was the Buddha and the other side was Prajnaparamita, and in the middle there were flowers. It's very nice. And Luang Por's teaching was very, very profound. It was very beautiful to listen to him. And there were many people, quite a number of the people on the retreat were also Dhamma teachers, lay teachers, who'd come to listen to Luang Por and receive guidance from him, which is lovely. And after the retreat, we went to Abhayagiri. We went to stay at Abhayagiri for a week or so, and quite a number of the Spirit Rock teachers or the local Dhamma teachers came up to Spirit Rock to talk with Luang Por and to discuss Dhamma with him. And Ajahn Channasiri and I were invited to take part in those meetings, which is very interesting to be part of that and to meet people. And at one point, one of the women teachers asked Luang Por, do you prepare for your talks? And he'd just, this retreat he'd been teaching was very, very profound teachings, teaching on the first three fetters, and mainly the first three fetters and the enlightened mind, the awakened mind, and approaching it from many different angles and really going into depth around this, what obstructs us from awakening, and that our natural state is awake. And this woman asked him, do you prepare for your talks? Don't you even do a little bit of preparation? And Luang Por just said, well, I just go into emptiness. I just go into emptiness, and then I see what comes. And she's going, you don't prepare at all? I said, I just go into emptiness. It's very, very, very inspiring actually to see, even these well-known teachers, you probably read about in magazines and read their books and so on. There's still a sense of needing to prepare and present, and just looking at the 40 years of Luang Por's practice of how, like that, those 40 years of living have been his preparation, or are his preparation, and so it really mirrored for me what an amazing situation we have actually in the monastery, where what we're doing in our life, in our daily life, is our preparation, and it's not. There's no separation. It's not, well, I'm doing this and then it's not like I'm doing one thing and then I come up here and I do something else. Or when I'm alone in my room, or when I'm in the kitchen, it's different to being on the meditation cushion or on the Dhamma seat. It's all the preparation for awakening, and everything that comes, every situation that comes to us, that challenges us and nourishes us and mirrors us. Everything is given for our awakening, if we choose to see it in that way. There's nothing that isn't. And I also have really been appreciating this, the sense of in the monastery. I think last year I started to have a very strong sense each day of, I don't know if you've watched the movie, but of Groundhog Day. There'll be this feeling like, oh, it's Groundhog Day. It's the same thing again. It's the same old, get up, morning puja, chores, breakfast, work, meal, people, tea, evening puja, and again, and again, and again, and again. And for a while it was a sense of real weariness. Oh my goodness, still doing this after all these years. And I just noticed, well, it might be because I've been away for a month doing other things, but I just noticed coming back here, this time it was this sense of, you can really turn things around. And noticing the kind of mind states that would have been probably overwhelming my mind in the first years that I was here. And in the same situations of morning puja, chores, breakfast, etc. And just noticing how different they are now, at the moment. And like just chanting, just to get up in the morning and the first words that come out of your mouth are paying homage to the triple gem. And just reflecting, gosh, what a beautiful thing. And actually experiencing it like I was experiencing it like flowers. Like these words became like flowers that were coming out of my mouth as an offering in the morning. And just think of the many things that you could be saying first thing in the morning. Grumbling and worrying and all the things that you could be doing, and then just to be able to offer these beautiful words. And the mealtime, the kind of miracle of the mealtime, this strange practice we have of, as renunciants, of having to be restrained with the most extraordinarily delicious food that comes every day. And just seeing how having the opportunity to do this, to live this life each day again and again and again, gives an opportunity to turn things around and to make really good use of the things that arise in a day and the people that one meets in a day and the mind states that arise. It's all an opportunity to awaken. And also noticing the many ways that the self defends itself. It's many, many ways. And trying to be more aware of when that happens and move against that tendency. So even Ajahn Sundar asked me if I would give the talk, and my first response was, I don't know if I don't feel very confident, and I don't really like sitting up there on the big chair, and maybe Ajahn Pekka will do it. She was very kind that she said that I could let her know at the last minute if I decided not to. So I knew I wouldn't have to if I didn't want to. And then I'm just thinking, well, what's going on there? That's the ego that doesn't want to be. It doesn't want to make a fool of itself, or doesn't want to have to sit up there and nothing comes, can't think of anything to say, or doesn't want to say something that you feel bad about afterwards. That's the ego. So, okay, get up there and move in the opposite direction to what the ego wants. And just seeing those many ways that the ego tries to protect itself through justification. I can't because, but I really can't because long, convoluted stories as to why it really isn't possible, and when that's happening, just try and catch it. Well, what if I don't follow those stories, and just go in the opposite direction? Or trying to control situations, I do it my way, my pace, and my time. Or what about doing it at someone else's pace? What about trying it in a different way? What about surrendering to some of the challenges that come? And then the deceptive mind, that wants to pretend things are other than they are, and wants to show a good face and hide the bits that you don't like, and even convince yourself, even convince ourselves that we're not really like that, and we haven't really got those things there. Or bring them out into the light and have a look. Don't separate and divide, but bring in the beautiful and the ugly, the noble and the foolish. The extraordinary and the ordinary. And just bring it all in to the light. And in this situation, in the monastery, is such a wonderful, supportive environment to do that in, because we're not having to struggle to survive or defend ourselves, or it's actually an environment in which to awaken and in which to bring in, with consciousness, consciously bring in the whole colourful spectrum of ourselves. And also, I think maybe with the comings and goings that are happening, and I found my mind reflecting on death quite a bit recently. And this is something I used to reflect on a lot when I first came here. And at that time it was to try and get a perspective on very kind of strong floods of sense desire, which would kind of overwhelm my mind and threaten my staying here. And now it's more of a sense of just having that perspective of, we're going to die. The ego has to die at some point. This is how it is. And then all of those games that our egos play, or that we play, that I was speaking about, the defending and the protecting and the justifying and the covering up and the telling stories, all of those things in the face of death are rather pointless. And I know I certainly have heard many stories of people who actually, as they come towards their actual physical death, go through all of the things that have happened in their life, the regrets, and the missed opportunities, and the things that they've done that they wish they hadn't done, and how painful in those last moments or last days or last months have to go through all of that. And we actually have an opportunity to go through it beforehand. You don't have to wait until those last moments. You can clear it out now. And often in the Ajahn Chah and Lumpur speak about die before you die. And it's it sounds rather pretty tough. Die before you die. And but what's the unmentioned part is the freedom that comes from dying to those to the ego, really. And it certainly is, it's not a path for the faint-hearted. It takes courage and determination and willingness and faith, confidence, trust. So if what we really want, if we look deeply and what we really want is freedom, then it seems that the path is to face these dark corners of our minds and to bring them into the light of awareness. And it's very important in that process, to have a sense of compassion and kindness towards oneself, because it's not an easy process. And the ego is a foolish and confused thing, and it's painful to die. The dying process is painful. I hope that the death itself is rather more wonderful. Yet to find out. So it's important to have this sense of kindness and compassion for oneself through this process. And coming back to the expansiveness that I started off speaking about, this the Brahma Viharas, the qualities of loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, mudita, joy for others' well-being, and equanimity, these have that quality of boundlessness and great space. So let this little ego and its story and its pains and its worries and its griefs and its fears and its joys and its hopes, let that all go on within this great space of loving kindness, compassion, appreciation, patience, equanimity, and really get to know it for what it is and let it let it die in the light of awareness, in the light of compassion. And because it's not a small task, this process, it's very fortunate that there are those who've gone before us and who've opened up this way. We just chanted the names of the Buddhas, and in the last, around the end of my time in America, we spent 5 days at Shasta Abbey in North California, near Mount Shasta, and there was a gathering of Buddhist monastics from around the country, of all different lineages. And in the mornings we would sit zazen, so facing a wall, and then we would join the Shasta community for their morning service, as they call it. And as part of the as part of the chanting, they would chant their lineage. They have a lineage that they chant every day, coming from the Buddhas through bodhisattvas, teachers, and coming to the last one in the line that they chant is the name of their teacher, Jiu Kennet. And when one ordains in that tradition, you receive a paper with the names of the Buddhas, the bodhisattvas, going down through this long lineage, and then the teachers, and then to your teacher, and then with your name is put there at the end of this long line. And there's a red line that's drawn through all of the names, and that's the bloodline. So it's like you're direct descendant of the Buddhas. And so we would chant this each day, and the first, I'm not actually sure how many, I was going to have a look at the paper, but the first, I think it's 6 Buddhas are the ones that we chant in Vipassy, Sanamatu, those in that chant. It's the first Buddhas that they would chant would be these Buddhas, and at the beginning of the name of each Buddha, they would bang this big drum, boom, and it would really knock you out of your skin. It was very, very, it would knock your breath away. It was very, very strong, and it really gave this sense of boom, the impact of a Buddha arising in the world and turning the wheel of the Dharma, and then boom, another Buddha, and boom, another Buddha, and then it would go on to the bodhisattvas. The drum would stop, and it would go to the bodhisattvas, and it was very, very powerful. Having this sense of, this is our lineage. This is what we can draw on, and Luang Por often speaks about the parami of the Buddha. If you say about how wonderful this place is, he'll say, it's the parami of the Buddha, or to be able to live on alms, go on tudong and be supported, he'll always say, it's the parami of the Buddha. So, this is also important to remember as we kind of struggle along in our individual paths, that we are part of this great lineage, and we receive the blessings of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Arya Sangha who have gone before us and who are present now also in the world. And to know that even if we haven't realized it yet, that we are not other than that is also our true nature. It is our true nature to awaken. And in about a week we'll be entering the Vassa here and in other monasteries. And it's a time when we particularly look more deeply into the training. So, this is the Buddha is one of the things that I find most beautiful and profound about the Buddha's teaching, is that he was teaching emptiness and as it's often said, the unborn, the unoriginated, the unconditioned, the deathless. He's pointing to this. But he also really took care of the conventional realm, in setting up a structure and a system within which to train the mind. So for the monastics, we have various different levels of precept training that we follow, and this is a tool for awakening. This is not, it hasn't been put in place to make us into nice people. It does make us into nice people if we use it right. But it's there as a tool for awakening, as a means to see the ways that we, that the ego tries to fool us into believing it's the real thing. So this is what the vinaya is for. And if you're a lay person, the 5 precepts, if you really use the refuges and the 5 precepts, this is exactly the same. It has exactly the same purpose and way of working. It limits us. It limits you from unwholesome, unskillful action, and it lifts you up to a way of living in accordance with Dhamma. So we have everything we need, and if we feel that we don't have the strength, or we don't have the courage, or we don't have the determination. If you really, if we look deeply and feel, well, no, I really don't, I really can't, no, and we want to follow that, then follow that consciously. And if we look and feel, oh gosh, I really don't feel like I've got the strength, but maybe if I just keep going, it might come. Then you might find that it does, and you might find that the blessings of the lineage of which we are part will come to you and support you through this path of awakening. So, my wish is that we all realize our true nature and benefit all beings. Here one.